Welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments, the best growth mindset podcast recognized by Million Podcasts and ranked as a top mindset podcast by FeedSpot. We're proud to be in the top 1% on Listen Notes. Join Dr. Alisa Whyte as we explore powerful insights and strategies to elevate your mindset. Let's dive in.
Hello, disruptors, and welcome back to another episode of Mindset Mastery Moments, where we don't just talk success, we disrupt limitations. I'm your host, Dr. Alisa Whyte, the #1 mindset disruptor, and today's episode hits home for every entrepreneur who's ever said, I just can't step away from my business. Listen, I've been there. I start something from scratch, pour everything, my entire soul into it. And next thing you know, before you know it, you built a business that sort of controls and owns you. You're the visionary, the operator, the HR, the marketing team, and sometimes the cleaning crew. But what if the real flex isn't how hard you work in your business, but how smart you build it to work with you, your life, and yes, the other parts of you that exist? My guest today is proof of that mindset shift. Amanda Olusanya is an entrepreneur, business strategist, and a global investor who rebuilt her business from the inside out after realizing hustle alone wasn't freedom. She now helps business owners create the kind of freedom most people only talk about: systems that scale, teams that lead, and operations that keep running while you live your life. Amanda, welcome to Mindset Mastery Moments. I am so excited to have this conversation because I know I'm going to make some shifts of my own, and our gleaming entrepreneurial audience is going to be on a high. Welcome, and we're so glad. Tell us who you are, what you do, and why you do it in your own words.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for putting on this podcast, because I know how much time and energy it does take to put into this. So not only am I appreciative, I know the audience is, and your work has not gone lost on us. So yes, I help founders. I work with founders. Yes, I think we all need that little bit of energy put into it once in a while. So I work with founders and leaders who are going through transitions, and transitions can look a lot of different ways, right? Whether we're restructuring the business, whether we want to exit the business, and exiting can look a lot of different ways for us. It can look that we want to sell it, but it can also look passive. Like you said, stepping away from that business without having to lose control, or if we want to just step away and just allow other people to flourish, because maybe we can step back and they can rise up. So again, exiting looks a lot of different ways. And what I find is that, when we're growing a business and when we're kind of pushing that business forward, that takes a certain amount of energy. It's like thinking about a rocket lifting off. That takes energy. But once you get the business going, the next phase of it is actually really about letting go. And to me, that's a transition. That's you are shifting your identity a bit of this, I am the company, into I'm going to allow others to help me and to rely on them, which is very troublesome for some business owners, right?
It is.
And then, as you mentioned as well, there is that burnout, which can show up in a lot of different ways. And for me personally, it actually showed up in a space of grief. I was running my business and I was working hard and I was doing all of the things I thought I was supposed to be doing until half my revenue walked out one day. And I was already working hard. There was a lot of exhaustion behind that. And I didn't have time to grieve. I still had to show up, and I still had to show up for my customers and my other staff and my family and my husband and all of the things that still went on in my life. And I didn't have space. And it was that moment where I really needed to understand how to do it differently, because I think, again, transitions are one of those lonely, chaotic, painful places in life. Robert Greene famously says us as humans have to have the pain in order to make the transition. And I've thought about that statement, trying to rebuttal that statement many times, and I don't think I can. It's just the amount of pain. It's just whether it's a little bit of pain and you're waking up to the call, or it's a lot of pain and you're just getting beaten down until you have no other choice but to listen. And so I think what happens is we're moving through this space. And I think it's one of those things that we don't understand in success. We all love the success story at the end, but anybody will tell you it's that transition that really tested your
Yeah.
resilience and tested who you are as a leader or an entrepreneur. And so your loved ones often can't help because they may not be going through that expansion. It's often a very lonely journey in a way.
Yes.
And so that's where I really come in, is helping leaders really understand and move through that transition as gracefully as possible. Even leaders need support as they outgrow familiarity. And so this is how I feel I
Mm.
serve, is to give people clarity in the chaos.
Oh my gosh. You have hit on so many things. It's a lot of what I feel like it's behind the curtain. It's you're
Mm,
speaking to us kindred spirits, right? Because a lot of people will see the accomplishments and the success, no matter how grand or how small it might look. Each of us on our entrepreneurial journey are someone else's hero. They're like, man, I wish I could have a podcast. And I'm like, the podcast seems to be taking over my life and I love it. But I have all these other things that I'm supposed to be doing or I want to do or I intend to do, but I'm struggling to fix it. Now it's my space and I'm like, well, podcast is supposed to just be like 5% of my move. It's just something that I believe is necessary. That is an important part of my why, but it's not the whole thing and it's taking over. So I
mm,
believe that when the world or others look at your successes, they don't realize that somewhere in there you could be experiencing, let's just call it what it is. It could feel like failure. It's
mm,
burnout. There's no profit in it that you're running at. You're taking care of all the expenses and you're not in profit making yet, or it stopped making profit because of market shift, because of global shift and change and the need for how you do what you do and you're having to make these shifts. I feel like a lot of us, that's the stuff that we don't often talk about because it appears as if we're failing to the outside world. And then our entrepreneurial friends, the last thing we want to know, let people know, I am not really making money. Or then the family members and naysayers who 5 years ago when you got started was like, I told you. So
told you so.
absolutely, exactly. And so you keep it to yourself. So professionals like you who specialize in this area is so much needed. And I talk about this all the time, how overachievement without boundaries can feel productive but actually traps you. So
Yeah.
when you talk about your wake up call of the money walking out in you, when you decided to rebuild from the inside out, where did you start?
Mm.
Mindset first, systems, people? What did it look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think I can remember the moment. It was that time-stamped moment where I remember what I was wearing, what I saw, the weather, the time. It was literally just hit me that heavy. And
Yeah.
what felt like absolute, my life falling apart ended up being exactly what I needed at that time, but nobody really understood. So even if somebody did in theory understand, it's still such a personal, lonely journey, even if you are partnered in life or
Mm,
have a family. And so for
yes.
me, it was my deciding moment of a few things I remember going through my head is I am never going to be in this position again. I've
Come
outgrown
on.
everything that anybody around me can help me because again, they came with love, but they didn't know how to help me. And then
Yes.
the other thing was that what I was currently doing is no longer working. So I'm going to need different
Mm,
information to get to a different level. And so I started with what I knew what to start with, which was the YouTube videos and the starting to ask questions. And I started joining seminars and I started literally studying business the way that I had studied my craft. And so once I started
mm,
studying business, I started understanding that I felt like this. The first time that I hired a business coach was where I really started unlocking things. And at first, I felt ashamed and embarrassed because I thought I should know it. I thought I
mm,
should have a better understanding and that I needed to know this information. And you're put in this position of leadership. So you don't always feel like you can't not have the answers, I guess. But what
mm,
made me really shift my mind was I relate a lot of things to athletics and I excelled in athletics far greater than school. And so as I was kind of moving, as I was relating this to athletics, I thought to myself that just because there's an athlete who's really good at what they do, they still go to the Olympics with a coach. And it doesn't mean that they're not an athlete, but what happens is at each level, you need a different coach because there are
Mm,
literally blind spots. That's why we call them blind spots. And so
yes.
once I understood that concept, I felt a lot more free and a lot less afraid to kind of share my vulnerabilities with my business coach.
Mm,
To answer your question, it started with mindset because that's where I had to start because my mind, my grief, my heart was a bit broken. Once I got
mm,
that, then I moved into a place of more power and clarity and really understanding what is it that I want? Where am I going with this? And then one day, what felt like out of nowhere, I was walking past a business and I had a sign on the door and it said it was closing on Thursday. Now, this was
good.
Sunday. So I walked inside on a Sunday and by Thursday I had a whole new business. And what was interesting about that, that's where I feel like, our efforts in the universe kind of align. And
Yes.
it felt like nothing was happening, nothing was happening, nothing was happening. And literally one day, Sunday, by Thursday, I have a whole new business. And so when I took
Mm,
over this new business, I started applying everything that I had studied. I got a new business coach, which was much more around the how and less about the mindset because I had worked on
mindset.
that from the previous year.
Mm,
And then when I had
mm-hmm.
this new business, it worked. I applied everything that I knew. I was able to double the revenue, triple the profits, and I basically flipped it, right? Like it was losing money every month.
Yeah.
Within
Yeah.
2 years, I turned it around and I thought, this is what I meant to do and this is what I love. And it's almost like the more chaos there was, the calmer I felt. And
Oh,
yeah, right? And I think sometimes we can relate to that when it's our own chaos. It's a
yes.
little bit more unsettling. But I think that's
Yes.
where my gift comes in is that I can help calm the chaos because I
Mm-hmm.
don't take it so much. So yeah, so that's
Oh, I
that's
love it.
where we need more of this, right? We need more of that support during these messy times because where do you turn? Who do you go to?
Exactly. So, so powerful. And you said something that I identify with. And as an entrepreneur, in my heart and my soul, that chaos and all the messiness is mine and I have ownership of it. And I believe it's that keeps you going sometimes, even when all the other things are still coming together. And I hope that an entrepreneur that's listening that may be on the still working a 9 to 5 or whatever understands the joy, that the release, the freedom that comes with that.
Mm,
Because when you're working for someone, their chaos or the chaos in that corporation, you only have so much jurisdiction based on the title that they give you.
mm,
But when it's yours, you're in control. And that level of freedom, even though you might feel like, okay, I go to work, I come home, or I've been spending, 50 hours a week on this, and then I do everything else. Trust me, that feeling, or even if you haven't come and you haven't gotten that feeling yet, don't be afraid to embrace it. I'm sitting here nodding at Amanda's term and how she expressed it because no one has ever said it the way she did that makes absolute sense to my soul. So I was like, I was getting it like, oh my gosh, that is the best description of what it feels like when you're building. Is the chaos and the crazy at some point still just feels so great. And you become more peaceful and relaxed and consciously just refreshed by it. Weird, but Amanda said it best. So let's talk about that big F word. You talk about freedom a lot. And that is the thing. I believe that most of us on our entrepreneurial journey in life are pursuing. A lot of us think it's the pursuit of happiness, it's the pursuit of wealth building. But I believe more than anything, it's freedom. And I love that
mm,
word because freedom for me is fuel. How did you
mm.
begin redefining what freedom meant for you as a CEO along your journey?
Okay. So I just want to backtrack on this word, and I don't know why it's been a sticky word for me lately, but I hear it a lot,
Uh,
and I feel like it's a bit of uh, it's lost its meaning, but this
Come
idea of
on.
happiness,
Come on.
this idea of
Come on.
happiness,
You heard
like,
me mention it there for a reason. Yes, for a reason. It's just a
yes,
weird word.
yeah.
I don't have a
Well,
great
it's
relationship with
interesting,
it right now.
yeah. Because I think it's like I hear a lot of parents say, "I just want my child to be happy," and I think to myself, "What does that even mean?" Right? And people are like, "But are you happy?" And I'm thinking, I'm not chasing happiness. I'm
Nope.
not chasing the pursuit of happiness. And what I'm chasing
Nope.
is an inner peace.
Come
And to me,
on.
the inner peace is really the freedom within myself right
Yes.
now. And freedom can look a lot of different ways. It can be the financial freedom, it can be the freedom of time, the freedom of energy, the freedom of love, whatever it may be. But for me, it's just an inner peace. And
Mm.
inner peace, again, it's this idea of you were talking about the mindset or the structures, and it's really this tension of kind of holding both and finding that space in the middle of understanding that your belief is so strong that this is what you have to hold on to when times are chaotic or scary or uncertain or unfamiliar. But then
Oof.
also this structure of doing and taking that action to be able to get that clarity. And I have been, I think a lot of times when we get on podcasts, we often talk about our successes. And, after my success, I had this huge calling to move to Africa. So I pack up my bags. I
Girl,
get
you're gonna
down to
make me cry on this show. Because we don't just talk about success here. We talk about all the
Yeah.
messy stuff in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and I think what's important about that as well, and I know you can relate to this as well, is that sometimes this inner calling doesn't have words for it, right? It can be something far greater than us. And so even if it's multidimensional, we only have 3D words. And so how do you describe something that
Mhm.
we don't have the language for? And so when I think about this inner calling and this knowing and this belief, it's still a very basic word for a much greater feeling or purpose that comes through. And so I'm having this, I'm at the height of my success. I own 2 businesses. They're doing well. My marriage is great. He's an amazing man. And yet I still have this calling that felt greater than me. So American woman ends up packing her suitcase and moving into Uganda. And it was messy, right? There was, a lot of us crave growth, but we don't really always accept what really growth is. And we get to a point of discomfort and we go, okay, it's too much for us to handle. So then the contraction happens again. And so I will
Mhm.
say, I love Africa, but it is a fast forwarded version of growth. And taking a naive woman from Minnesota who lives a pretty comfy life moving
I'm
into the
sure.
heart of Africa was
Yeah.
growth and expansion 10x.
Whew.
Yeah. And
I
again,
can
it's like,
only
who do you relate
imagine.
to? Yeah. And it was like, it was and that's why I can relate even more is that it was so lonely because how many people can relate to this? And it's chaotic. And then, to the outside world, as you mentioned earlier, they're going, well, you wanted this, you did this, you started this.
Mhm.
But then who do it's like you can't talk to the locals because they've never left. You can't talk to Americans because they might be
Because
nomadic,
they
but
think you're
very few
crazy.
people. Yeah, exactly. They're like, why? And even their questions are very limited. So based on people's questions, you can really understand where they're at mentally. Unfortunately, I get very few questions around it. And usually it's just things like, is it safe? Do they have
Right.
houses? Do they have cars?
Right. That's the first thing that you get from anyone. And I'm like, dude, it's not even safe for me to drive on the I-10.
Mm,
Like, it's not safe for me to get out my street. There's people who just won't let me even come out without, because I have to drive for them. Like, I guess I equate safety as an illusion, the way we
mm,
talk about it, because
absolutely.
they run into your houses here too. Like, you're at
Mm,
home sleep. Like, how many times on social media was a family in their living room and a car came driving in? Like, at least 5 that I've seen. So when we talk about the safety and it comes to your dreams, and this is how I disrupt limitations and I get into people's business and then they have nothing. The false
mm,
beliefs that's stopping them from going in on what they're saying they want. Again, I don't make your rules up for you when you come to me and we're strategizing. Like, Amanda, you knew you had to go to Africa. So there are people who know they have to go to the UK and they've known for 10 years and they wouldn't go because, or maybe India because, oh, it's not safe, or yeah, what am I going to eat? I don't have enough money. And I'm sitting here
mm.
listening to them and I will disrupt every last one of those thought processes. And then they're left with nothing. And I'm like, So the only reason you haven't done this is because fear.
It's so interesting you say that, because what I hear when you say that is it actually ties back to your original question, is what is freedom for you? And my answer was it's an inner peace. And so the
Mhm.
inner peace is a place of knowing, trusting, and believing in yourself or the universe or whatever it is. And even if there's something that's unsafe that's happening, that is still for your better purpose. And so that there's a lesson, there's a something there for you. And so I can't agree with you more, which is safety is an illusion. And we have bought into the disillusion of the narrative, and this constant narrative of people thinking that it's their thoughts is just at this point comical to me, because when I hear
Mhm.
people say things, they think this is their thought, their belief, their narrative. But I can tell you, as I move through the world and I hear very isolated thoughts based on areas, I can tell you it's a kind of contract that you've unknowingly signed up for. And it's a delusional contract based on deception that you have agreed to. And I get
Oof.
it. And I will say that moving to Africa, you think that me moving to Africa would teach me about Africa. But what it's taught me more than anything is unlearning where I came from and
Yeah.
unlearning what I thought was me. And it's really dissecting
Ooh.
what is me as a soul, what is me as Amanda, what is me as my own thoughts, and what is cultural. What did I buy into as far as a
Wow.
cultural narrative belief system that I bought onto, right? And how much of this is an outside force, is external,
Mm.
and how much of this is in.
It's
And you
truly you.
cannot know inner peace until you kind of let go of the external.
I'm just going to breathe through that because that is the story. And I remember when we hopped on backstage, you were talking to me about the transition the work you're doing, that you're focused more on. And I mean, we got another 2 episodes to record, obviously. We can't unpack it all for you all in this first episode, but this is the thing about the journey. This is why I speak on entrepreneurship as not just a business building perspective, because a lot of people believe that when we say entrepreneur, which is what it's created to be, it's that person who builds a brand and a business of some sort, or even maybe has a side hustle, right? But I speak of it on a stance of a way of being and doing, a mindset first.
Mm,
Why? Why? Because
yeah.
I also believe that you can work for an organization, never have the intention of starting a business, but develop an entrepreneurial mindset only because an entrepreneur gets really clear on why they are here, the
Mm,
big theme of purpose, but then understands the seasons and part of their life and allow themselves to grow and show up and express themselves through a means of living and doing, serving society and providing for themselves and their family, and more or less creating what I call impact influence income. And so, however you do that, whether it's through work, it's gardening, whatever that looks like to you, living off of a family inheritance, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, you're going to grow and you're going
mm.
to glow, and you will give that and share that with other people. And so, what you just told me, that your willingness to saying yes to your true calling looked like becoming a nomad, and that would have been the thing that everyone would be like, you know what Amanda did? She went to Africa, blah, 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 blah. But it was bigger than you doing the thing that everyone was afraid of. It was you saying yes to you and not knowing what the heck that looked like. But going
It's the
down the
uncertainty.
journey. And just when you think you know, oh, aha, this is why I moved and I'm living in these different countries on the African continent and going back, whatever that looked like, it's like, nah, that's not it. It's deeper. It's deeper. And all you're doing is removing and unveiling the core and essence of your existence on this planet right now. That's what I heard. I'm sorry. It's a lot, but that's what I heard.
No,
Talk to us
I
a
love
little
it.
bit more so that someone else who's listening to us understands when you say yes to purpose and even your entrepreneur calling, where that can take us and bring us
Mm.
back around to your freedom framework. I know it's a lot.
Okay. Yeah, no, I love
You
the
do it
depths.
your
I'm like,
way.
yeah. let's skip the fluff and go straight for it,
Yes.
right? And when I'm hearing you kind of talk about this idea of really diving deep into our soul and finding that purpose and finding that what we can say yes to and finding something that feels maybe greater than us, whatever that looks like. And to your point, it
Yes.
looks different for all of us. What I've seen is that when you're an employee, you have the capability of separating yourself and the job.
Mm.
And when you're an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, again, this could be a gift or a curse, is that when I'm working with leaders and I'm working with entrepreneurs, I've noticed that there is no difference. And you're
Mm.
the number one mindset disruptor, right? And so you cannot elevate your business or yourself without elevating yourself because you become the ceiling in your business. And
That's
so
right.
if you keep talking about, oh, I want to grow the company, first of all, I want to grow is not a strategy, right? Because I
Come
hear it
on.
time and time again, like, oh, I'm going to just get a marketing agency and we're going to get more clients. That's not growth, right? It might be a little more revenue, but it's a lot messier than that. Anyway, so
Right.
we want to define really, so my method is a clear method and really it's about getting clarity. And
Mm.
in that clarity, again, when I'm working with entrepreneurs and I'm working with leaders, business owners, whatever it is, we can't separate that. We have to dive
Mm.
deep into what's holding us back. Because if we are
Yes.
leaders in fear, then we are the ceiling to our own company. And so each
Yes.
stage of business has to change the role. It has to change the skill set. Each one of these levels requires a different mindset and a different skill set. And we've seen, for
Yes.
example, big leaders out there. I don't want to call any out because they're so rewarded, but as we move through each level,
If we have to, we can. If you
I
can't,
mean,
I make examples all the time. I'm not shy. We
yeah, I'm
don't
trying
do
to think of a
bad
good
work.
one
We're just
though.
doing great work.
I'm trying to think of a good one because it's like the ones that we hear all of the time, have become so politicized in a weird way, especially in America. That's a
Yes.
whole nother episode. But the
Yeah,
point is
right?
that the person the person that you are that started the business and as you grow a company and you get to say 10 million or you get to many employees with many departments, you as a leader, your role has to change in each one of those levels and each one of those skill
Come
sets.
on.
So that's kind of noticed is working with these entrepreneurs is we do have to dive a little bit deeper. What is holding you back? And
Yes.
they come to me with, I just need a better strategy. But of course, there's a little bit of, but my wife is going through this and my child's going through this and I'm going through this, or I'm afraid of that, or that scares me. And there is a lot of fear, even within people who look successful. And what I've noticed
Mm.
is that we all have a different level of fear. So for me, I can pick up my bag and go to Africa. That might scare somebody else. Somebody else, it
Right.
might be a sales call. It might be asking for what they're worth. For somebody else,
Mhm.
it might be going up to a woman and asking their hand in marriage. Each one of us has a different level of fear. And I
Yes.
think it's really about uncovering what that is for somebody so that we can quote unquote unlock so that we can get to that next level. Because again, you are the ceiling in your business. And
Mhm.
so what's going to happen in your business is people are going to rise up and you are either going to rise up and give people more opportunity or they're going to rise up and quit because they've outgrown you.
I love it. That's absolutely that's it. That's the thing. That's the thing.
Those are your choices.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't and you simplify it for so many people who might not understand what it is, and then for someone who is looking for what does it really look like if I decide to go all the way in? What would you say about you kinda give us a little bit about the level of clarity that digs in without giving it all away, but I wanna introduce that and how you work with entrepreneurs right now who are in that space of transition. What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot of what it looks like. Fear,
Yes.
you know, the personal mindset where they're kind of at and then also where they're going. Like I said, growth is not a
Mhm.
strategy, it's aimless. It's, you hiring a marketing firm or, making more sales or hiring somebody who's going to help you. This isn't a growth strategy. And so
Mm.
the freedom framework, it's definitely something that I've covered and I feel close to, but really It's the clear method that I'm now using. And that clear method
Right.
is really stands for clarity. And it's all got to start with clarity, right? And then the
Yes.
next thing is really about leadership. It's really about developing people. And I
Mm.
am amazed at how many people either don't like doing it or are afraid to really step into that leadership role themselves. And again, ask people to step into their leadership roles. But I'm just
Mhm.
amazed at how many people don't understand people. And
And
I
don't
just, again, it
realize that
blows
is
me.
the essence of anything we would do is
Yeah.
people. And when I throw the word relationships, everyone thinks well, she's probably going to talk about romantic relationship. Just last night,
Mm,
I was talking with a group of professionals and I'm like, when I say the word relationship, I mean relationships. We're relational beings. Like everything about our existence is about how we relate with people, things, places, experience, thoughts, perspectives. So when I say relationship, I am probably alluding to all of it more than I am. And then you would hear me say your
yes.
familiar relationships, your friendships, your professional relationships, your romantic relationships. That's when we might divide it. But that's the first thing first. But you know what, Amanda? Relationship with self, which is
Yeah.
why I love the journey that you introduced is when I said yes to a call I had within me. Everything about who I truly am is what I needed. That became the foundation of what I do, how I do, and why I do what I do, where I do it, and who I do it with and for. It's a
Yeah.
mouthful, but it was all about unlocking. I say unlocking because I don't believe we get lost. I think we get buried. I think we get
Mm,
suppressed because as kids we're like, no, I'm not giving you my candy. No, and everyone cheers like, oh my god, she's gonna be so sassy and assertive, and no one's gonna get around her. And then once you become like 10 or 11 or even 6 or 7, and you tell the first friend at school, no, I'm not letting it. Oh, the teacher says she doesn't like to share. You need to work on helping her share. The confusion. So here we are as adults with all these things of what I'm expected to be, where I'm expected to be, how I'm expected to be, who I'm expected to be with based on my accomplishments. I'm a track star. I'm a basketball player. So now I need to be with someone who's even greater than me. All these supposed to, shoulds, coulds. Tell us how, as an entrepreneur, that level of clarity will benefit us if we do that hard. I would say, I want to say hard work. If we take on that challenge and really get that level of clarity you're talking about, how does that really help us in not just business, but just who we are? Because, like you said, the ceiling is you in the business that you're doing. So that
yeah.
level of clarity, which becomes for me freedom, equals
Mm.
what? What does that look like? Paint that picture for us.
I
See, it's
love the
euphoric.
question. I love
It's
direction.
euphoric.
Yeah.
I
I'm
just look
like,
at her face. Yes, you literally just, yes. All the blood just rushed to her face. I love it.
is my pink showing? So
It's beautiful.
why I like it is because, again, there's this tension between the physical world and the energetic world. And there's just certain universal laws that come with clarity. And I've studied a lot in Napoleon Hill, and there's a lot of, the cool thing right now is I feel like we are in a world of Christopher Columbus for the universe. There was one point where, they said the world is flat, and somebody was brave enough to go, nope, it's not. It's round. And I feel like we're in that discovery place and we can now speak openly or more free about energy. And I don't care if you're religious or
Come
scientific
on
or
now.
anything, it's real. I mean, the energy is
There's no
energy.
getting
And so for
around it.
me,
Yes.
clarity becomes around becoming a magnet. And the clearer
Mm,
you can get, the more magnetizing you get. And it's not about being nice. It's not about being kind. It's not about being a better person. It's about being tried and true. It's about being absolutely certain of who you are and where you want to go, and yet allowing the universe to bring it to you and allowing it to come to you rather than having to go chase it. And you talked about being a young girl and the confusion around, it's cute when you're younger and then when you're older, you're now bossy or, and then our hormones shift into giving, giving, giving rather than kind of owning ourselves. And it's a very confusing time,
Mm.
especially for women. And so I love that idea. And for me, as I become clearer and clearer, and I'm now 45, and right now, I am actually circling back to, I think it was Picasso who said he spent a lifetime mastering. I don't know the quote. I'm going to mess it up,
Yeah,
but the
just
essence of
paraphrase it.
yeah, the essence of what he was saying was he studied art his whole lifetime only to, at the end, get to going back to being a child. And
Whoa.
have really resonated that with me lately is, when we're younger, it's clear who we are. It's very clear who we are. And then it gets
Yeah.
morphed and muddied and all of these things as we move about. And then
Mhm.
as we get into our later stages of life as women, we almost get to revert back and there's a negative connotation. But for me, I'm really embracing this idea of being able to go back to this younger Amanda. What would she do? Her sassy little bossy self. And
Yes.
my clarity is actually coming from me being a child again.
I love that. I feel like more than anything, I relate. You said you were 45. I just turned 45 a little less than a month ago as well. And it's such a
Me too.
beautiful, yeah, really? It's such a beautiful, like, I don't, and I'm getting juiced up too because it is such of, I've never been this clear in my life before, but it's never been more challenging than where I am as well. But I
Yeah.
will tell you, I love it. And I wouldn't take nothing from my journey now. And I remember hearing someone, I think it was on the Oprah show, say that. And I
Mm,
sat there and I thought, I wish I could say that one day because all these crazy stuff happened that I didn't even cause, losing my memory through domestic violence as a young girl, all the things. And I'm like, I'm here. And I'm like, because you just repeated it. It's going back and learning and seeing myself, and as I like to say, reconnecting with the true me. This is why in my platform, I talk about connecting with your true values, core beliefs, because I want you to get back to you, not all the voices
mm,
in your head, right? And then clarifying purpose and building from there like an entrepreneur, whether you're going to work, your career is going to be working for someone, with someone, alongside someone, doing both, or building a business, whatever it looks like. It's just now it's going to be built from the most pure place. And as I put myself out there to work with individuals, help them get that level of clarity and unlock that, man, everything, I keep going deeper. When I thought that I couldn't go any deeper
yeah.
and become even closer to more the more pure, true version of myself, man, I keep going. And so I think
Mm,
that's the adrenaline, and I felt like I got that energetically from you. No, we don't have
mm,
it all together. No, we don't have it all figured out. But one thing we are, Amanda, I believe, sitting here as two women, is clarity and confidence
mm,
and just commitment. We are clear, we're confident, and we're becoming even more clear, more confident almost daily. And we're
mm,
committed to expressing the highest version of ourselves while we still have time because we don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but I resonate. I feel like kindred spirits. That's what I'm getting off of you, which is where I live. Everything else just keeps. Yes, I have strategies. Yes, I have systems. Yes, I have dreams. Yes, I have plans, but those are what I do next. So that's where I want to take us in this conversation now, because we have spent the first part of this episode just revealing ourselves and our journey from the inside out.
mm.
But tell us, because you've worked with teams who depend on their founder for everything. What's the first red flag that an entrepreneur hasn't truly let go so they can step in that space of leadership you talked about?
Just one. There are many. Yeah, one of the biggest red flags I hear oh, I just really want to find somebody who can think critically. Another one is, um, the last few people. There's just no good help out there anymore.
Mm,
Another one
mm,
is, I've told them a million times and they just don't do it.
I've told them.
But it's but really what it is it's so when I hear that, or even when people are going to hire, they'll say things like, "Come work for us. It's like a family here."
Oh my gosh, that's a scary thing. When I hear
Translation,
that,
we haven't
I'm scared.
figured out. One of the first things I tell people, I was like, well, if they have a degree and they think critically and you want them to figure it out, it's like, well, then they'll just go into entrepreneurship, right? Like they're not going to need a job. They're not going to need you.
Come on
And
now.
so really
Come
your
on.
job becomes leadership. And the difference
Uh-huh.
between entrepreneurship, as we mentioned earlier, is the uncertainty. And you have to be strong enough and resilient enough and savvy enough and all the things to be able to not only create your future, but then create paychecks for people. And that is no
Come on
small
now.
journey.
It's none
And
whatsoever.
right. And so then, but as an employee, what do you want? You want security, you want comfort, you want knowing, you want opportunities. And so you, as a leader, are the one to be able to have to develop that for not only yourself, but other people. And so when I hear these things, I just hear that, hey, I'm making it up. I'm in the stage of making it up. And I don't really seem eager to find out something else at this moment.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, and so those are kind of the biggest red flags, and I will say that I know this sounds funny, but when somebody is in that stage of, I don't want to say broken, but in that stage of feeling defeated and feeling
Mm,
like they can't see the light in that the dark space that they're in, actually prefer much working with those people because they're often in a
mm.
space that are more open and they
Ready
now
for to
understand how
surrender.
important it. Yes, to surrender, to let go, to
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge, to allow somebody to help them. Because when somebody talks too much, they're trying to prove, they're trying to convince you. And I shared myself, I'm saying this also out of vulnerability because I was in that space as well.
Mm-hmm.
The first business coach I had, I feel bad for him because I was in that space of, even though I wanted the help, I still wanted to prove that I wasn't stupid or I knew enough
And you,
and it was
yes,
until he broke me. And luckily he was experienced enough and confident enough in a coach to be able to kind of break me, if you will. And, we call it a broken heart, but it's because now it's open. And I would say the same in
yes,
business. It's like we've got to get to that point of broken
yes.
in order to get
So
to
that
that
it can
next
open.
level. Yeah. And
Yes.
so I think, yeah, that's a crucial part. But when I hear somebody talk too much, that's also a red flag because they're in the stage of proving. Because somebody who is
Uh,
genuinely wanting to get to the next stage, they're in a space of listening. They're in a space of wanting to understand and asking questions, not in the space
yes,
of trying to prove their worth or their knowledge or whatever it is. And again, we're human and this isn't a judgment,
yes.
it's just an
Isn't judging.
observation
It's clar
where
that's
they're at.
clarity.
Mm,
Yes. That's clarity. And someone's listening and they're like, maybe that's why that $10,000 coaching program didn't work last time. Yeah,
mm.
because you weren't in surrender. And that's what people
Yeah.
don't understand. I've been, in my journey as a coach, I have actually paused and returned, at least one or two people's their entire pay money because with no insults, no malice, I'm like, you're not ready.
Yeah.
And until you're ready, you're gonna waste money. And so I'm gonna refund you the rest of this program because you're not ready. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And I
Maybe
think
you're
when
not
you
ready for what I have to offer. It just I
mm,
know I could not serve you like I would want to. And that was earlier on in my coaching career. Of course, I had a totally different temperament as well. There's so much I didn't understand about myself. How the heck I was going to help them with that? Because a part of me was I was clear, but I was not confident in owning my own stuff. So
mm,
watching someone not own their stuff was only more like a trigger for me. And I didn't understand why.
yeah.
I know if that's making sense to you. It's like there was parts of me, like you said, as the coach, the ceiling is you. So if
Mm,
someone comes in your care and you have not passed that level, you can't help them.
mm.
You
Yeah.
cannot help them. And if you're not in surrender to allow that period or that experience to help you unlock it, because you don't know everything as a coach, but a lot of times we're breaking open along with our clients, but we're breaking open at a level that's higher than where they need to break through. And that's again, like I said, I'm very vulnerable on this podcast because that's what a lot of coaches and a lot of coachees don't know what's happening in their dynamic. I think when it comes down to first know thyself, my response was, hey, this is not working. I see the lack of commitment and all of that as just a symptom that says you're not ready. Because, she was struggling. Oh, I have all this going on. I'm trying to make this schedule, showing up for our sessions, not working on the things we plan. And I'm like, okay, you're not ready. And I realized that she was a reflection of something I needed to learn about myself because I realized she wasn't ready to let go of our excuses. And the reason I was working with a client who wasn't ready to let go of their excuses because that was safe for me.
Yeah.
I didn't trust myself to work with people who are committed. The high achievers that say, here I am, I'm broken, I'm ready, I need help, because I thought I wasn't qualified to work with them. That's what I mean, I was hinting at it, but I can see that I wasn't making clarity because I was timid still in this moment. My vulnerability, there's levels, but let's be real. I was not comfortable going with the people who I was truly called to work with because I felt like I wasn't good enough. So I was comfortable bringing in these people who I felt comfortable with. Imposter syndrome was running the show for me. So I settled for a certain demographic of people who wanted help because I felt safe. And then I realized there was no safety in it. It was actually more chaotic. This is why I say safety is an illusion. I was better off casting my net with the big fish and getting one or two of those than to have 5 who were going around the mulberry bush because they weren't ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And to expand on that, I think as students, we are, of course, I was suggesting that my favorite people to work with are that person who is ready to kind of accept and surrender a bit and not be in that stage of proving. And you can tell when they start to ask the questions versus talking too much. And I would say the same about coaches. Typically, coaches are also trying to prove themselves. And so they want to make sure that they're getting enough information through. And I've been guilty of this. But one of the things that I've been teaching a long time. Even in my first career, I started teaching very young at 24. And most of the people I was teaching were far older than me. I would just try to talk faster. I would try to fit all my knowledge in. I would try to, and I noticed people's eyes were glazing over. They're just kind of, they weren't with me. So I try to prove myself more. And it wasn't until I started asking questions. Well, where are you at in your journey? Well, where are you? The same with interviewing. When I became an employer for the first time, when I'm trying to convince them of why they should work for my company, it never worked as well until I flipped the script and said, what are you looking for? What are your dreams? Where do you want to go with your life? And I became a better interviewer. I became a better educator and I became a better coach when I actually stopped telling and my serving came through asking better questions. And it gets them to the point of owning it and realizing it without the judgment rather, because at the end of the day, as coaches, as educators, as bosses, we probably know the answer, right?
Yeah.
But it's really about asking the right questions to lead them into getting them to the place. And I think, again, that comes through our own expansion and our own confidence of being able to ask the right questions, knowing the answers already. And trust me,
You're waiting
and
for
then
them
finally
to
it's like, okay,
unravel.
they
Yeah.
finally are answers.
I
Part
love
of where
that. Yes.
how did my clients are and structure that will not and we
work with
and
you.
it happened to a lot of us. So that's going to have to when
Exactly. And you have
clarity
to,
is
that's where you
important.
have to put it down. Yes. So what systems or tools? I mean, earlier before we got on the podcast, I mentioned simplicity, the level of clarity and simplicity to achieving, getting your message out and letting people know, hey, this is how I'm here, this is what I'm here to do, this is how I serve. What systems or tools do you recommend that actually free up time instead of adding more management headaches for entrepreneurs and leaders?
Because again, and so if you're
Yes.
always
It's
systems can
it's
be
a
even
tool. That's all it is. It's not a system.
yeah or I'm gonna,
Yes.
or excuse me, it
Yes.
allows it to
It's a
be
people.
more freeing.
Yes.
Habits
Yes.
really because, like, if you have to go
I agree.
at some point, you're going
It's
to
not
get
to
to go
be
to
there.
yoga. So
Right.
I thought where we're
Yes.
taking it's going to give always
Yes.
cheap, but it does. It eats up our.
It does.
Does it? I don't know if
Yeah.
I
Oh,
turn
it
around.
absolutely does. As someone who
You know,
I personally built multiple platforms, I had to learn structure isn't the enemy of creativity. It really is the thing that gives you space to breathe, innovate, and
yeah,
think at a higher levels. The more
yeah.
structure I become, and then strategically bring people on board and delegate activities, because I was not to be able to hire people on a quote unquote even full-time, part-time basis until recently, because it was neat. I actually was putting it off. And it was mainly
Mm,
because when I attempted it, I realized that my systems were with me. And so
uh-huh. Exactly.
exactly, those systems had to become SOPs, which is a
Mhm.
dredged word for a lot of people, but all it means is standard operating procedures. But that's where clarity comes in, because you cannot write
Yeah.
an SOP without clarity, because it has to make sense to the people who are going to work with you or for you, however you want to put it. For me, people work with me because what it is,
Mm,
I am bringing or inviting or and then qualifying, individuals who are professionals and experts in these various domains of what it takes to bring mindset mastery moments together. So
mm,
when I bring someone on board, they're never, in my opinion, an employee or a staff member for me. They're an SME, subject matter expert, or working on becoming a subject matter expert sometimes, but they're halfway there, great enough to do what needs to be done, but they understand the blueprint that I have to provide them in clarity. And then they're able to be creative and up level. They use their creativity, expertise, and innovation to up level what I already have. So like one of the people on my team, she's like, I wanted to get the information details about how you want it. I'm like, this color, these are my brand colors. These are the photos I want to use. This is what's going on with this. It's all you. Because if I gave her, I wanted to have black lines, gold, and yellow and circle, I feel like that would limit the benefit of her having her on a team. As a
mm,
leader, as the person who's sitting in front of you, I feel like those are details and decisions I don't need to make. I don't need to make, I've pre made them by deciding colors and all of that. The team gets to decide whether it should be circles or lines. Because for me, that doesn't change the message that I bring. If I have to go back and do that, for me, I might as well design it myself because I very well can. And there's nothing
mm,
wrong with her asking for, if she needs guidance, I can provide it. But what she's used to is showing up in circles with leaders who micromanage every aspect of her creativity, for me, which defeats the purpose. I didn't just bring her on board so that she can do things. I want her to be and enjoy what she loves to do on my team so much that my work and my design looks exceptional, because she's feeling like she has the freedom to do it because she knows things that I don't know. I can
mm.
whip stuff up in Canva, but that's just what I had to do when I didn't have money to pay people that are
Yeah.
experts at it, right? So this I'm taking the time to explain that, because what you're saying, that's the practical truth about it as a leader, is being able to be so clear, not only about what you want, but understanding who is greater at it, allowing them to be, empowering them to be that, and
Mm,
trusting that, because that's the freedom. If you're in it in every step, then you hire a designer, you hire a marketer, you hire this, you hire that, you hire all these people, but you're still spending hours every week helping them, making sure they do it. And then you'll be like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. It's better I do it myself because I got to tell them, no, 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 no. You are creating a system that doesn't allow for you to step away. And that's the work that you help leaders and entrepreneurs do, is
yeah.
system with the tools of having people or CRMs or whatever that looks like, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Are going to be get into the when you hire a marketing level. Once we
Yes.
should give them the time more. So
Exactly.
first get people and to leave very
You
quickly.
got you got it.
Have what
There
makes a
you go.
trainer.
Exactly. Oh,
So
you're giving me my stars. I'm taking them. Because my team is pretty young.
Like, how
Yes.
do that is through
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
well, we
I
could do that.
love that.
And you
What would
keep
happen
asking
if
questions.
everyone
No,
left
you
their
don't
shoes
forget
here?
it.
I like to say, what would it look like if everyone left their shoes here? This doorway would be
Exactly.
blocked. You see?
Yeah.
So how can we help make sure we're all safe? That's
Yes.
and I taught preschool in my journey.
Mm.
And I think that if people, one time I was the prime minister of a royal kingdom, and I remember telling them that all you leaders and ministers and all of that, y'all are just like the preschool kids I have. That's what makes my job easier. And they're like, really? You just call? I said, yeah, because all we are big kids. I said, the same methods I applied in preschool 20 years ago is what I'm using with you all. And it never fails. And I think that's one of the things that has been the biggest blessing to me as an entrepreneur is being an educator and having the opportunity to be an early child educator early in my life and studying child development and early child education and child psychology. It's like my biggest help. If anybody wants to know, because when I studied leadership and organizational management, all of it came back up. All the things I learned in child psychology and child development was rooted in leadership principles and leadership. And I laugh about it. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I could see how that makes people tick.
Yeah.
And so it was just a play field for me.
Or how you were treated. I mean,
Yes.
that I think it's into the
I'm
things
sorry,
that
I'm laughing because
I
that's how I
know,
put
but
it.
it's
That
like these
is a
childhood
deep-
trauma playing out on a
Yes,
global. We are now all
affected
trauma.
by it, and that's
Yeah,
what
and I think-
leadership is. That's what
Yes.
leadership is. That's why I created something called Heal to Lead, and I teach it
Okay.
to entrepreneurs. And I created specifically for leaders, but I haven't launched it yet because we get called in to talk to companies and do trainings or coaching or whatever that looks like. And they want us to talk to their staff so they can be better communicators. And I'm the whole time, and I'm like, if we don't, for lack of a better word, we don't fix you, well, it's going to keep raining
to the root.
crap throughout the system. You are the head of it. So when people are freaking out, know that someone at the top, girl,
That
you're my twin.
You don't
the
think
most, you know what?
having
Studies have shown that men are more emotional than women are. That's
feel
it.
And so if we
we're
with
more
our emotions,
we're more expressive, which is what frees us. We are more expressive what we're feeling, what we're thinking, and how it's affecting us. So that's what people call emotion, which is the end effect. They say that men feel just as much as women do. But however, because they're not able to, we've trained them to suppress the expression of what they feel, whether it's verbal or else, it is forced out somewhere because it's just like a balloon. You fill it up with air and you try to push it down under the water, get in the pool. It will stay there as long as you keep your hand on it. Remove your hand and the balloon comes up. So we get to war because that man who is quote unquote a less emotional being, who's more in control of his emotion, is the ones we trust more to lead us at the highest levels most of the time. His suppression of his true feeling and emotion that they taught him from childhood till now, he gets to express it. When you can't say that, Alisa. When you see a grown man literally having a temper tantrum in one of the highest spaces on the planet, we don't get judgy. We should start examining it because it's easy just to judge. That is a mirror of where we kind of are on a scale that says it's okay to let someone who's suffering with major temper tantrums in this area of their life lead us. The question is not what's wrong with them, is what's wrong with all of us. And I'm saying us is the lack of a better word, that we felt it's okay to let that demonstration become who we lead. I mean, that's on us. And I say us again. It's not even
we just
scientifically
through our
true.
beliefs and yet
Real
rewarded by being, and that doesn't work. It can work.
You know, I was born in another country. I get confused about it still, even though 25 years, 20 years, I'm still often shocked at why people get angry. Like a friend of mine was getting mad because the Uber said, did you lose me? Let me message you. This is crazy. Am I there? Hello, Amanda. Can you hear me? I'm not sure what's happened.
Aha.
Can you hear me now?
There we are. Yeah.
I wonder if it was on your side. That's crazy.
I don't know. I was watching myself. You'll have to see at the end when Like what actually recorded? I don't know.
Yeah, so you're probably gonna walk away, and when we walk away, it's gonna upload because it's still showing 42%. But it says you have you have it opened in another window.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
I see that.
we'll wrap this, and then you and I will coordinate some other times to do like a part. I think we have like another 2 or 3 parts episode in us. It's up to you. You can kind of
Yeah.
decide where you want to go and decide, because I know it's probably getting late for you as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
attention span wise, I think,
Right. So
we
I
might be
chunk
having.
it. So this one might be two episodes. We know
Okay.
how to do it. When it goes into over like 45 minutes to an hour, we split it to 45. And then yeah, but
Okay.
we have some good content. So
Yeah.
I'm not
No, I love
sure.
it. It was
Yeah. So
easy.
let's talk about let's do flip the script, and then will wrap up in like about 5 or so minutes. It seems to be pretty
Yeah.
simple. You know, you're gonna walk away, and I'm gonna probably walk away, and it's gonna still be uploading, which it does as long as you leave the computer open. I don't know if you can leave it while you do something else, and you don't have to be in
Okay.
studio. You just have to be connected to it.
Okay.
All right. So
Well,
let
hopefully
me.
I didn't close the other thing out. I don't
Oh, it
know.
will
Now it
upload.
says
It's gonna keep
okay.
uploading. Yeah. We just have to keep it open.
Okay.
It's pretty cool how it works, which I like. Otherwise with
Okay.
like Zoom, it just goes away. So it's
Okay.
recording right now. It's already recording.
Yeah.
It kept recording. Okay. So okay,
Yeah, it says an
gotcha.
hour 32 because one of us was always in it.
Yes, exactly. But it would, and then I kept rejoining to the original recording. So I love how it works. It's
Mm,
interesting. All right. So 5, 4,
okay.
3,
I
2,
don't know where
1.
we left off. It was
Yeah,
where did we leave off or where?
that part might be shortened a little bit.
Oh well, it
Just
was
the
starting to
last
get a little. I think
the
everybody knew who we were talking about.
right, because I think you were at the point where you were talking about, you were giving feedback about the, maybe let's wrap that up a little bit in a bow about our traumas and how you discovered that as you traveled the world, you realize they're all there and it's all
Mm,
affecting our leadership. So if you want to jump
yes.
back in, however you do it, because what I
Okay.
do is clean this up a little bit and then I send it to my editor. So I do a pre-edit so I know how, because I don't like them guessing and chunking my stuff. So I clean
Yeah.
myself and then send it to them to
Yeah.
polish. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
So 5, 4,
For
3,
editing.
2, 1.
So, really, as I move through the world and really watching how leadership unfolds in different countries through traumas that are playing out, and admittedly, I don't know if I was quite prepared for the level of trauma coming to Africa. And again, I'm not trying to isolate Africa. We all have it globally. And like I said, it plays out in different aspects. But ironically, it is typically playing out in the male aspect, because most
Mhm.
of our presidents today are
Have
men
been
and
male.
most of the people making high level decisions are men. And it's nothing against men. I absolutely love men and all that they bring to offer, but it's really more about just kind of allowing all of us to heal on a certain level. And again, when I originally even talked about business and how I got to the point that I got to it, it was because I got to a place of grief and I didn't have the
Mm.
space or the time to grieve. And that's when I knew my systems were broken because have, I wasn't able to step away the way that I needed to. And then I got to the point of burnout and exhaustion. And I don't know if it was burnout or exhaustion or if it was just a space of I couldn't have the time to grieve and go,
Yeah.
I need to heal myself. And then when I come back, I can come back stronger. And I
Mm.
think globally we kind of need to do that a little bit is also, yes, we need to push and drive and create and produce and all the things that again America has embedded in me that has to happen. However,
Mhm.
when we step back from that, we can and we give ourselves that time and that space and have the allowance to be able to heal, then when we do come back, it usually does look a lot stronger. And globally, it's like when I see leadership throughout the globe, but even throughout Africa, you can see the traumas play out. And it's really sad
Yeah.
because again, we all have them and we're human, so nobody's immune to it.
Mhm.
So we just need to figure out how we can deal with it and how we can kind of nurture each other rather than blame each other or do this or say that. And I think in government, it plays out a little bit different. You can definitely tell when a system is broken because we
Yes.
allow some of these poor behaviors in. When we
Mm-hmm.
had if we had a system that wasn't broken, we wouldn't even entertain some of these poor behaviors and these
Said
poor choices
loud.
that people are making.
Yeah.
Whereas in the private sector, I always feel like we kind of have to show up because our business will directly be affected and eventually it will just fall apart.
Yes. Ooh. But then it's slowly on a larger scale, it's falling apart right before our eyes and affecting millions of millions. But we don't have an accountability process. We
Yeah,
don't. And it's not even, it's,
exactly.
I guess, accountability for lack of a better word, but we don't value in those high spaces that
Mhm.
we need to heal.
Yeah,
I believe as a leader, you're a conduit and you're also you're the ceiling and you're also the foundation
yeah,
all at the same time. Really interesting. Whoever's at the in the foundation and what is in their foundation affects what we're building on. And they're also our covering. Determines
yeah,
whether we have holes in the ceiling or we have gutters in the ceiling, whatever is happening up there is all going to be who they are as a person. I taught we, a lot of conversation around the globe. And I get invited all the time to speak on leadership. And I always say, I want to talk about leaders because ship brings process and
mm,
there is no process that's going to really work if the essence of the conduit, which is the leader, has not come into, what should I say? They don't have clarity.
yeah,
They're not they're not functioning well as a person.
yeah,
How are they going to be able to help the ship sail safely across the oceans? And that's why I talk about
yeah. And
leaders.
what I will say on a personal note as well is that when I was in my toughest transitions and my messiest, chaotic, lonely, all the emotions that do come up for both male and female that
Yes.
happen in those transitions, I will say that I lost my train of thought, but it was important. I will say that with the president, when I'm in those transitions and those dark spaces and those messy spaces, what happens is I don't make good decisions. And so some of my poorest decisions have been in a space where I need to heal, where I shouldn't be producing, where I need to kind of step back. We have seen that a bit in more of the private or especially the IPO or the publicly traded companies is that growth is so pushed all of the time, but every company, human, politician, government needs that time to just step back a little bit, reset and say it's
Yes.
okay to
Yes.
let's be clear, it's like, okay, we had 10 years of great growth. What does this next 10 years look like? And we can say that in private sector where we, might have our annual kind of team where we kind of get together. But I think that time of rest is just as important as a time of production.
If not
And in
more.
America, especially, that is not rewarded. And I think it needs to be.
It's not rewarded, it's not encouraged, it's considered a weakness, it's considered
Yes.
failure. You know,
Considered emotional.
yes, you know what I'm saying? They rested, they didn't spend as much time on the front lines, but culturally, they stepped back. They weren't cooking meals. They would come in and sit. We wonder why women are so resilient,
Mm,
why we seem to bounce back in life sooner than most males. Up against this toxic masculinity. And in the competition, we start to subscribe to the toxic masculine traits. And so we ignore all the natural flows of being a feminine. And so while we are winning in the boardroom, we start losing in life because we're losing
mm.
ourselves, really. So we're competing with,
And I don't think we have to, though.
we
Like,
don't, it's not required
yeah.
at all.
I think we can have both. I mean, but I think you brought up an important point to me. You brought up an important point that I think is very relevant and important. There's two things in there. Number one, we don't get mad at nature when nature needs to rest. And they've done a lot of studies where they've dumped in a lot of adrenaline or things like that. I mean, woods, for example, because they want faster production, they're doing it with even our nature. And the wood doesn't survive as long. It doesn't last as long. It gets moldy. It gets termites. It gets all the things because it doesn't have the natural cycle of just what's natural, right? And so I pay attention
Mm-hmm.
a lot to nature because I think there's a lot of wisdom in nature. Even within business, I think there's so many analogies that I go back to in nature that I think are incredibly important. And then you also bring up the indigenous people as well. And there's so much wisdom in the
Mm-hmm.
indigenous and the plant medicines and the animal medicines and all of this stuff is so interconnected. And one skill set that I really believe that women do have is we understand the interconnectedness far greater because
Mm-hmm.
we have to. We don't quite
Yes.
compartmentalize things as much. So when you do A over here, it does affect B over here. And again, and I don't want to make this male female because I'm uninterested in that. I'm more interested in societally and systems that we've developed,
The
however we've gotten there, right?
yes.
Is that this is where we are. But the reality is the cancers, the food sources, the
Mm,
businesses, the politics, it's out of balance. And
yes.
that's really what I believe is that even when you're talking about the male female dynamic, I just see it as out of balance
It's out of
because
balance.
wherever we're at, we haven't found that
The
balance yet.
harmonious
And
spot and the balance. Yeah.
yes, harmony. It does feel messy, but again, I feel like what I hold on to in my belief system is that, and this might be a good place to end, but where I feel like my timestamp moment of this has got to change. This can no longer, what I was doing is no longer going to work moving forward is
Mm,
exactly where we're at on a global scale. And
yes.
so collectively, we need to come together and go, you know what? This is our timestamp moment. Maybe it's messy, maybe it's dark, but we need to heal together and we need to get back to that balance and that harmony.
Balance and harmony. My gosh, two of my favorite words because they are exactly right. So, Amanda, we have to ask, what is your definition of success now with everything that you've learned and all the freedom you've allowed yourself to experience and just be in?
Abundance. So mine is abundance and inner peace. I think that's my now definition. Of course, as I grow, my definition might grow, but for me, it's finding that knowing that I have abundance in all aspects of life. I have my health and my wealth and my freedom and my choices. All of this means so much to me. And I genuinely feel like I'm successful in all the elements, not just one. And that inner peace of just knowing, even if it's not okay, it's okay.
It's okay, right?
It's
Wow.
all okay.
What's your next big thing right now, and what kind of mindset does it require for you to step into to that new level of freedom?
Kind of what I just expressed was I really believe that the interconnectedness on a global scale, where we are going and where we are headed, I really want to be a part of it from a much higher level. I
Mm.
think Africa is going to play a big part of it, and I don't say that from a exploitive capitalistic viewpoint. I also don't
Ooh.
from a, NGO, I'm here to help, or, it's like, I know better than you. I say it from a place of this is where the energy is, and I want to be a part of the growth.
Mm.
And I want to serve the same way the same way that I believe most Africans want to serve, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like this, where is this going? I think there's a creative energy here in Africa. I think there's a absolute soul that I felt that I haven't felt anywhere else in the world. I feel like the West is not going to be a part of Africa's growth. I feel like the East is not going to be a part of Africa's growth. And I feel like, if anything, maybe the Middle East, but I feel like Africa's growth has got to come from Africa. I just want to be a part of it. I
Yes.
feel the energy. I love the energy. And I just want to contribute to what I believe this continent has full capabilities of. And again, it looks a little messy from the outside, but in my mind, I'm like, go fight in the
For
streets,
yes.
go stand up for yourself. It's like fight back. I think that's, as somebody once said, freedom is not free. Sometimes you
No.
have to fight.
You have to fight for it,
I
and it
feel
has a
the energy.
price. It has a price tag, and I say, "How much are you willing to pay?"
Yeah. And so I feel that energy. I remember going to South Korea in what, 2000, and I remember feeling that energy of the hunger, the drive, the discipline that that really went into Korea at that time. And I'm not saying I know Africa's a continent. There's 54 countries, I get it.
And
But
they're
there are some
huge.
countries that have more kind of hunger and drive right now than other countries. And again, I just want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of anywhere where they see a vision, they want to get there, and there's an upswing, and I just want to be a part of that.
In
So on a
clarity,
global scale, that's where
confidence
I'm
and
at.
consistency. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You're speaking my
Yeah.
heart and I'm so honored to have met you because you're ahead of the we share that belief. That is the next big thing for me as well. And I don't know all the steps. I don't know the steps. I have a vision. I've been working on it from where I'm at and slowly but surely I'm getting there, but I know I have to be on the continent. So I'm locking arms with you and we're going to strategize. Yes, because I haven't met anyone who understands that is from. I'm saying they are out there, but I had not met anyone yet.
Yeah.
You are the first that comes from American soil. And we just have that inner knowing. But now you have not more than an inner knowing, you have the seeing, the experiencing, and even more steps into, I call it the resurgence of
Mhm.
Africa. That is my word, the resurgence, because if we go far enough, Africa led, and it's a return, right? For planet Earth, and Africa will
Yeah.
lead. And that's I I feel like I was born with the inner knowing, and as I do work remotely and as I get into things on the continent, it started making sense about 4.5 years ago. And so I
Amazing.
just, like you, want to be a part of it. And I believe my purpose is wrapped up in it, enveloped in my saying yes and committing. So you've got a lot of guidance. I'm booking my strategy session. So before we
That's
tell the
good.
audience how to get a hold of you and stuff, I want to step away from the microphone. Mindset Bites to Go. It's where you leave about 90 seconds of words that if it was your last time on art, what would you say to the world? What would you want them to take away today? I step away from the mic and the phone. Here we go.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even given it thought, but I would say trust yourself, because I think what happens is in the times of uncertainty, in the times of transition, that we get into a space where fear comes up and we question ourselves. But what's going to lead us out through to the next phase is an inner knowing, an inner peace, and an inner gut feeling that we do know, that you do hold the power, that you do have the answers, that it is not in your mother, in your father, in your kids, in your husband, in your wife, in your boss. It is within yourself. And so my gift from me to you would be trust yourself, because you do know and you do have the answers. With love.
I love that. Trust yourself because you do know and you do have the answers. I mean, those are words not to live by only, but to live with, to live from, to live through, and to live by.
Mhm.
Because if it's anything else, that's where your North Star is. It's within yourself and you
Yeah.
already know. You just have to tap in. So tell us, Amanda, what's your favorite way to have our listeners and viewers connect with you? Of course, you're going to be back on this podcast quite a few times. We have a lot to
Oh,
talk about. We're going to
what's
unpack Africa too and your work.
yeah, I think probably Instagram, I guess. And then my website's one of those always ever evolving. I feel like we've moved to landing pages more than websites all of a sudden. So I would just
Yes, we
say,
did.
yeah, right. It's like, what happened? But at Amanda.Olusanya on Instagram. I have a
Okay.
YouTube channel, but that's shifted so much. So I'd say Instagram, it's here to
Instagram.
stay, right?
Yes, because you're still
Instagram.
dropping ends. Yeah.
Yeah, Amanda.Olusanya. That's it. I try to give a little bit of inspiration and, whatever I can, however I can serve. I just want to make sure that we all live to our fullest, because when we all live to our fullest, that means collectively we're all growing. And I really live for expansion and growth. And I don't just talk about it, I do it every
You
day.
do
So
it, but you're
that's what I
being,
feel like
yeah.
I can share.
She is about it. So, disruptors, if you're ready to stop being the bottleneck in your own business, go connect with amandaolusanya.com. We have it in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this episode. She's got an incredible free live training called How to Build a Business That Runs Without You, right? I think you have that as well
Yes.
on your website.
Yep.
So if your team leans into heavily on you, or you're craving a little bit more breathing room, trust me, the session is a game changer. I'm going to go through it myself just so I can get familiar with some more of her work and go deeper. She does have a strategy session on our website too. You can connect with her. She didn't tell me to say this, but I figured it all out because I do my deep dive. So I think that's a great way to connect with her as well. Amanda, thank you so much for this conversation and just for
Thank you.
reminding us. Yeah, is that we didn't become entrepreneurs to create another job. We became entrepreneurs to
Yes.
create freedom, impact, choice. And to anyone who's listening, remember your business is supposed to work for your life, not replace it. Keep mastering your mindset. Think, speak to become. I'm Dr. Alisa Whyte with my co-host today, Amanda Olusanya. We're happy and blessed to be able to serve you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye now.
Thank you.